Fuel prices in New Zealand are at their highest levels in nearly 3 years. Yesterday, the four main oil companies increased their prices by 3 cents a litre. And some experts are saying it's just the tip of the iceberg as they urge the government to prepare for an oil crisis. To discuss this further, I'm joined by editor of the Car Buyer's Dog and Lemon Guide, Clive Matthew Wilson. Good morning, Clive. Thanks for joining us. So why the petrol hike? Is it simply the Middle East and Libya?
Two things. I mean, the world's running out of cheap oil, and the whole society, the whole world's been based on cheap oil for 100 years. And second thing, that you can't run your car off oil that's in the ground, so even a small interruption to the supply of oil causes a massive increase. I mean, Libya supplies 2% of the world's oil and has pushed the prices up through the roof. And the whole Middle East is a hotbed right now, and so we have a perfect storm scenario. We could end up as it was back in the 70s, with long queues in front of petrol stations. That's a perfectly reasonable scenario. But in the longer term, the cheap oil, the easily accessible oil, is running out, regardless of, what happens in the Middle East. And our society is sort of pretending that it's not happening.
OK, what can the government here do about it? They're hardly in a position at the moment to start subsidising petrol, are they?
Well, no. I mean, the best thing they could do is cancel the motorway projects and start building more rail because, I mean, their own studies show that it's 5 times more energy efficient to carry goods by train than it is by truck. And that's their own studies show that, and yet the government's response is to keeping on building motorways, which all studies overseas and most people's direct experience is that motorways simply create the next lot of traffic jams a year down the line. And, as an Aucklander, I'm absolutely sick of sitting in traffic jams for an hour to get to anywhere. If I were in London, I could do the same trip in 10 minutes. I mean, this is not rocket science, and yet the government is firmly back in the 1950s in its view that we're somehow going to spend the rest of our lives sitting in individual cars, sitting in traffic jams, and that the oil's going to come by magic.
Comparatively to other societies, how reliant on oil have we become?
Totally reliant on oil, from the chair that you're sitting on to the plastic bottle, to the clothes that you wear, to the trips you fly home, to the petrol in your car. They're all based on oil, and we don't have a plan B. I think this is absolutely insane.
OK, as we're talking about petrol hikes now, we start always talking, as we do, about electric cars. What are the pros and cons of those? Electric
cars, at the very best, are a decade away from being a practical proposition. Hybrids are mainly tokenism. They look good. If you check the facts, they're not that much better. I mean, all the quick fix solutions that you've been hearing about are like those cures for cancer that you hear about in women's magazines, that 3 years down the line they've disappeared, because fundamentally, oil is an incredibly efficient way of supplying energy, and it's running out, and we don't have a plan B, and we've grown used to a lifestyle where we put everything on a credit card called oil and don't worry about the fact that it's running out. That there'll be a payback time one day, and we're rapidly approaching payback time, both in terms of probably an oil crisis very soon, but also in the long term we're simply running out of the cheap oil that's kept our social and economic system running.
What can Kiwis do about it right now?
Well, I think first of all, start carpooling. It's an obvious one. Buy a smaller rather than a larger car, and start pressuring the government to actually stop spending money on more roads and spend money, getting cars off the road so we have options. I sometimes have to fly to Australia to do media work over there, and because we have a strong presence there. If there's a traffic jam or an accident on Auckland's motorways, I can't get to the airport because, unbelievably, but they built Auckland Airport without a rail link. There is no plan B. They're not even planning to put a rail link there. The whole thing is car-based and road-based, and our whole society has been set up that way. And we're going to be left like a possum in the headlights if the fuel prices go up enough. And the only real solution is to say, OK, we screwed up, now let's start planning our society so that we can actually work together when the oil runs out.
OK, just finally, do you think petrol prices that are given, they're going to keep going up?
I would be surprised if they don't go up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go up beyond people's wildest nightmares.
All right, OK, Dog and Lemon Guide, Clive Matthew Wilson, thank you very much indeed for your time. Appreciate it this morning.